Hello, my name is Dan Johnson and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new Doctor Who special, I suppose, series, which is entitled Legend of the Sea Devils. This is notable for the fact that it is the penultimate episode for Jodie Whittaker. It has a lot of the Tasman stuff that people have been pining for a while, and I'll talk about how I feel about that later. But it is also the first appearance of the Sea Devils in New Who, and I think they haven't been in it since Warriors of the Deep, which was, what, 40 years ago, rounding up, I think. So quite a long time. It's been one of those villains that people have wanted for a while, so it was really cool to have them on the screen, but I shall talk about them as we go through. But something that I'm a little bit concerned about when it comes to reviewing this episode is the thoughts that are in my mind right now are thinking a lot about the next time trailer for the Centenary and looking forward, I suppose, into her regeneration, etc. And a lot like internet culture, it's all about moving forward constantly. And the fact that all of that's teeming through my brain right now is a little bit of a concern rather than the episode itself. But we're going to get to that very soon. So I'm going to be reviewing the episode as I did with Flux, and I review them in categories. So plot, Doctor, companion, highlight, lowlight, negative, feel, monsters. That was the last one. Not in that order, but I got them all. This, to me, is probably the most important part of any episode, and that's the plot and how it's delivered. And I think that this episode is going to have a bit of a reputation as being a bit of a debatable subject, because this episode has a very clunky delivery less than story. I think that the story does make sense and it works fairly well, and the idea and the premise of it is really beautiful, but the way it's executed is dreadful. If we take the treasure, the idea of the episode being a pirate theme, you're going to have some treasure to it. The issue is the treasure is handled badly. It's handled by the fact that people tell you about this treasure and how it's worth a lot of money. Well, I mean, obviously it is technically money, but still, it's worth a lot and that it's really important that we get it. Then we are, at the end of the episode, collecting the treasure, as it kind of like shows the reward, the fact that we've won, I suppose, within the story, and they do it off screen. I presume because of time restraints. And it feels weird because of that. It's almost like we're cutting out scenes that could develop things better. We're cutting out scenes that showed them getting to there, and I think that would make the episode more focused and feel like it has more of a theme. It feels like, especially the script, is willing you to be interested and to be connected to everything, to every name, to every place, to really connect with every detail, and for it to be fully processed within your mind, so that you're completely taken along with the episode. It's showing you, it's not showing you, it's telling you. And I think because of that, the episode feels chunky. It feels like it's messing around over here and then coming over here, and it's like, well, right, okay, the episode makes sense, it has a plot, but things don't feel fleshed out properly, and you don't get a real sense of story from it. It feels like an unfinished project. It's a very weird thing to describe, but I think that's going to be like the most debatable thing about this story, and whether, if you can take on that information, if you have some willingness to invest into that information, you'll enjoy the episode. But if you don't, if it kind of flies by you, or, for example, you kind of miss out on it and the episode just drags you along and you have no idea what's happening. And I can't say the episode's particularly complicated, it's just badly delivered. The plot may be clunky, but I think it does work, and I think that overall it's quite a fun adventure with Sea Devils. It's been a long time, for me anyway, that I feel like we've been given a proper swashbuckling adventure, as all the promotion stuff says, and I was very happy with that element of it. And before I move on to the next category, I just wanted to mention this because I'd feel bad if I didn't, and that was the fact that at the beginning of the episode I just didn't take to it very much. The dialogue felt very clunky, and it was taking me a while to adjust to how Chibnall writes humans, because he writes them like aliens, which is weird. And there was this scene with the Sea Devil, and it's the first encounter that the Doctor has with it. and it's shot. Well, for me, I thought it was a bit disorientating that we're going like that constantly, but they're close images, and I was like, you need a wide in there just to refocus everything. And I don't think we got that to my recollection. But anyway, my point of it is that there was this bit with a net, and the Doctor just goes, "Now, gang," and then they pull the net. I'm like, where did the net come from? That net wasn't there a second ago. I was like, oh god, I'm gonna hate this one, aren't I? We've got a lot to talk about in Doctors and Companions this time. We have, obviously, Thasmin, so I thought we'd start with that. So, I said last time that I'm quite happy with Thasmin. I've seen it all before, but still, Thasmin doesn't really have many more endings that can be done, but as a story, I felt like it did actually add that little bit that I wasn't expecting it to. I think that the fact that the Doctor's not acting on that, or currently, is a nice little twist on the idea of the Doctor having relationships, in the same way that if you think of like somebody that is almost immortal, their connections to people are going to be very different, and their approach to relationships is going to be very different, because eventually things will end for them, and from their life perspectively, that period with that person is not going to be a long time. So I quite like that element, and almost like what it would be actually like to date a Time Lord. But I do feel like the whole Thasmin thing, for me personally, is a little bit rushed and just doesn't quite work within the story, especially with Chibnall's writing. He doesn't really write people at the best of times, so writing people trying to be emotionally vulnerable is just a bit of an issue for him. But if you like Thasmin, good for you. In terms of other characters, I don't have too much to say. I like John Bishop. Can't say he's doing much, but I do like John Bishop, and he adds a nice little element of comic relief, I suppose, during the episode. So the main event of the episode is the Sea Devils, and I think that they portrayed them quite well. I love the design of them. I think it's brilliant, and the pirate aesthetic lends to them really well. And the work that was done in making the eyes move, the costume design, for example, was just gorgeous. Highlight for me of the episode was the production, the visual effects. I think a lot of it was really good. I think there's one shot when a Sea Devil kind of jumps, and it looks funny because obviously he can't jump that high without the momentum, and he has to move a bit more, and he kind of just jumps and then sort of freezes, and they blur it a lot so he can fly into the ship. And there's no real other way of doing that if you take a different plate and maybe do it a different way. But other than that, I think the episode looked really, really good. For me, the biggest lowlight was the emotional dialogue between the Doctor and Yaz. I just felt like it was really off-putting and cliched and just not for me at all. I just felt like none of it came from a deep place. It was just all very surface level, or whatever Chibnall could think of at the time. Yeah, I don't like a lot of Chibnall's dialogue anyway. So, but when he was trying to do something with a deeper meaning, I just don't think it quite worked. I'll give you a moment to guess what my negative for this episode is going to be, but I think you can probably predict it quite easily because I've mentioned it a couple of times during this video, and that is the pacing and the unfocused nature of the story. I think that with a tighter script, I think this episode could have been truly remarkable, but because it didn't have that, I just don't think it functioned as well as it could have, and how the plot decided to not cover certain aspects, etc. Maybe with a longer runtime it could have done it, but for me, I just don't think it worked. So we come into our final category, which means that I need to summarise my thoughts. And in summary, I think that Legend of the Sea Devils is a fun adventure. I mean, it is clearly flawed, and maybe with a few more watches I can appreciate it a little bit more because I can read between the lines, I suppose. But on the surface level, I don't think it quite works. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. It's time to get excited, I suppose, for the centenary special. We have 7 months to wait for it, which is frightening. It's kind of how I judge time at the minute. Next time we'll be reviewing Doctor Who would be all the way in October. Well, anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like. I've got plenty of projects to be working on in the meantime, videos, etc. So what did you think of Legend of the Sea Devils? Do you think it was an absolute flop, or do you think it was a triumph for Doctor Who? I'm really interested to know. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.